Hello, welcome to Chess with Simon. I'm Simon. I've always played against the Baltic Defence in a sort of normal way. In other words, after Bishop f5, which is a kind of way of declining the Gambit, I've always played moves like Knight c3 and e3. So I've kind of gone Knight c3, then they probably go e6. Then you probably go something like Knight f3, looks like a sensible move. And they kind of probably go c6. And then, well, Queen b3 is what the engine wants. And I mean, one might play Queen b3. They might play Queen b6. You're tempted to play c5. Okay, so they take. Or can they play Queen c7? Queen c7 is actually more common, although the engine wants to take. Bishop f4. They can't take because you take on b7, I assume. Queen c6, knight h4. Okay, stuff like that. It's reasonable, you know. It's reasonable. But it sort of occurred to me that actually the most critical line when they play Bishop f5 is to take, and that's what the engine wants, and that's the most common line. So maybe you all know this. Take here, and then what doesn't happen is Queen takes, well, what isn't great is Queen takes d5, because then White has Knight c3 with a big advantage. What is absolutely astonishing, what Black, well, it surprised me, what Black does is take here, and then the standard move is not to take on b1, although actually the engine wants to take on b1. The most common move is Queen a4 check, which still gives White an advantage. Then they play c6, then you take on b1. Then the Queen has to take on d5, of course. Then there's some sort of hard thinking about how to get your pieces out, because it's a little bit tricky. But let's follow the main line, which the engine doesn't mind. Knight f3, Knight d7. Okay, that knight's got to come out somehow. A3. Now, why A3? A3 to stop the queen taking on A2 when the white queen moves. That's certainly one reason to play A3. The engine doesn't mind it. The engine prefers E3. Okay, let's just look at the main line. Just see what the main line is. A3, knight gf6, E3, E6. This is the most popular line. Queen c2, very popular. I guess I'm thinking about bishop c4. Bishop d6. Bishop d3. I mean, what do we think? What do we think? White has a better centre. Black's development's pretty good. I mean, Black's not in terrible trouble. The engine does have White as quite a lot better. So actually, the engine quite likes that. Now, one thing to go back to is, why does the engine just want to take on b1 here? Like, after this, they always used to play Queen a4 check, but the engine just wants to play rook takes. Well, let's have a look at that. Then Queen takes. Then the kind of main line is a3, which they don't like. So let's look at this. Now, why aren't we worried about Queen takes a2 here? I suppose humans would probably worry about Queen takes a2. What do you think happens after Queen? You just develop the bishop and just play on, do you? You just develop the bishop and play on. Bishop d2 or something, and you just say you've got a lead in development. I mean, actually, it says White's quite a lot better here. Better centre, better development. The Queen's kind of silly there. The Queen's probably a risk of getting trapped as well if you're not careful. So, the human line. In fact, you know what? We're going to take the engine line, because at this point, there's only one human line. So, the humans don't really know what to do here. Queen c2. Queen d5. Okay, and we're picking up a pawn there. Okay, so the thing is, I certainly prefer White in that position. So, Queen takes a2 is not good, which is why you don't really need to play a3. So let's just look at what the engine would do now. Knight f6, e3, knight bd7. So White's got pretty good development. Queen c2, thinking about bishop c4, I assume. e6, b4. What's b4 all about? Well, I suppose it stops c5, doesn't it? Stops c5, the c5 break. Pretty clever. So b4, a5, sort of trying to remove that troublesome pawn. Bishop c4, which I think we talked about. Queen e4, trying to swap the queens. Bishop d3, don't want to swap the queens. Queen c6, I want to swap the queens. Then you allow the swap of queens. Okay. b5. So what did we think about all of this? Well, white has the two bishops. White has a slightly nicer structure. The engines prefer white by a mile. So the answer is, I wouldn't play the Baltic as black by the look of it. The answer is, it's a good idea to take on d5. Taking on d5 is a good move. It's the engine move. It's a good move. There is one other move that I looked at, and actually one of the engines suggests is queen b3 in this position. And then the main line is, wow, e5. What's that all about? e5 takes on d5, takes on d4, develop knight f3. What's going on here? Why aren't we taking on b7? Who knows why we're not taking on b7? Bishop c5, queen c4, knight d7, knight takes d4. I suppose the bishop takes. No, queen h4. Queen h4 to defend. What does queen h4 do? Attacks the knight, and it pins it against the queen, so you can't take on f5. Quite a hard move to find, I've got to say. Then the Indians want to play. They want to play e3 really to defend the knight. Bishop takes. Queen takes. What's this all about? So what do we think of all of this? Queen takes, e takes. You know what? I don't really like this so much. I mean, black has nice pawns. White's a pawn up, right? So white is a pawn up, but black has better development and a better structure. So I don't think we won the pawn on d4, didn't we? I don't think I'm wild about that, frankly. But one thing I don't understand, well, one thing I want to find out is, what happens if we just take here on b2? Can't we just take on b2? b7, sorry. So quite a lot of people have done that. They've taken on b7. Okay, so opinions differ about this, even with the engines. Knight d7. Knight f3, it's kind of equal. It's just kind of unclear, right? Rook b8. Well, that's the second pawn we've picked up, but black looks very active in the centre. Rook a8. Okay, so are we just getting pushed around here? Is this just a repetition? Queen a6. I can't believe it's a repetition. It just doesn't. Is it a repetition? Maybe it is. But black can take it. Okay, so the answer is, it's kind of murky. Black's got a lot of activity in the centre. The queen, there might be a repetition in there or something close. It's not really to be recommended. Frankly, I think the best answer, and it's sort of easy to remember because it's a very principled move, is we're just taking on d5 with the pawn. We're taking on d5 with the pawn. We expect them to take on b1. We expect them to take on b1. We can give the queen check. We cannot. But actually the engines just prefer to take. Don't worry about a2. Just develop. Just develop and play what is known as normal moves. And white's a bit better. Alright, I hope you're well. I hope that was useful. Hope to see you soon.